Hi, welcome to Regal in Real Life, where we talk about life, womanhood, motherhood, being a Black woman or girl, unmasking, being in a corporate job, just everything. We talk about everything and anything. So please do stay tuned, like, comment, and subscribe if you like this kind of content. Now, before I get into it, I just wanted to take a moment to show you kind of this little updo thing. I mean, it's not that neat over here on the side, but I love it. I love it. And I've always loved wrapping my hair, but I just think that it's not something I felt comfortable yet to do in my corporate workspace. So what do we think? I'm thinking I might do it because you know what? My braids need to be redone and I have absolutely no time this weekend to do it. She says as she sits here making a video on YouTube. But no, seriously, I have no time to redo my braids this weekend, and my birthday is coming up next weekend. So I'm kind of thinking maybe I'll just do a bit of pampering for myself then, maybe switch it up because I've got a few days off of work. I've got some annual leave, so I might do something entirely different. I was thinking changing my hair color, but keeping the braids. Let me know what you think. And again, I love this. I love it. 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 But anyway, I wanted to come on here today and probably ramble because I am rambling already. But really, I wanted to speak about an opportunity that has, well, an opportunity. I don't know if that's the right word, but basically, I work within academia and I have been querying having my hours compressed because it is a lot. For anyone who works within academia, you probably know what I'm talking about. And it is so difficult. On top of the fact that I am the tokenized woman of color. I prefer to say Black woman, but there are literally no other women of color. But anyway, that is me. That is my situation at work. I'm also fairly um, newly qualified, and so this is very strange context that I'm coming from. And somehow I have managed to find myself in this position, and I feel like I should feel super grateful for that, and I am, and I have been. But I also feel that the role is now starting to take over my whole life. I am a mother. I have two beautiful children under the age of 5. And I feel that I am missing out on them. They are missing out on me. And I just feel that despite being in this position that I'm in, despite feeling that I'm good in the role, I'm questioning how worthwhile it actually is anymore. Um, you know, from a mental health and well being perspective, the role is difficult for me personally. I am finding that it is difficult to switch into the different roles and context of my life, switching off after work, nearly impossible for me, specifically if I have work that still needs to be done. Switching back into being a mother, being a wife, really difficult. I find myself prioritizing my work because it feels like it has to be prioritized. It feels like there's a consequence if it is not prioritized. By the way, just for some context, I have received a recent diagnosis of ADHD, and I am currently awaiting the outcome of my ASD um, assessment as well. But that's a bit of context, very new context. So, before that diagnosis, I was having these challenges, henceforth, I went forward for the assessment. But also, I had a quite tumultuous and traumatic upbringing. And I've always considered that the challenges that I do have from a social perspective, um, as well as everything else, sensitivity, etc. I've always considered that to be hypervigilance, anything. I've always considered that to be direct outcome of my traumatic experiences. However, um, in recent times, and probably due to my own understanding and growing knowledge on the topic, But also being a mother and seeing my own children, I started to um, query myself and kind of my own way of being. So that being said, there has been um, I suppose, a deep desire for me to find some type of balance and flexibility in my life and in my home life and with my children. Now, whilst I enjoy being a working mom and, the other, I guess, identity that I have within my role, I realize that my role is very, very cognitively heavy, and it requires a lot more of me than I'm possibly willing to give. And I think that's the stage that I'm in right now. Now, I think to myself, I just want to pour in to myself, for one, to my children, to my husband, to my home life. I want flexibility. I need finances, um, but I want flexibility and I want freedom and I want to feel like I'm not constricted by anything. And I think within this role, I feel very constricted, in some ways, having the being scheduled to within inches of my life is helpful for me because it allows me, that routine, that structure, and to get on with what I need to get on with. Having multiple different things to focus on, although at times that cognitive switching that context switching, sorry, can be difficult. Again, it keeps the role from being too much of the same. And I can kind of be like, oh, okay, I'm doing this today. And that's exciting. Sometimes that's a little bit difficult when I'm maybe teaching a subject that I'm less familiar with or less comfortable with. But in general, I enjoy that learning. I would enjoy all of it if I felt like I had time, and I have no time. It feels like there is not enough time in any day, in any hour. There is not enough time to just get everything that you need to get done. And when we consider that through the context of the fact that I'm learning as well, I'm still learning and I'm still learning the job. So in some ways, and I think we're always learning. I don't care if someone has 20 years experience in their field. I think there's still going to be elements that they need to learn, and there's still things that are changing. Our environmental context within academia has probably changed so much. I mean, it's changed even from when I was a student in terms of the demographic of students, the diversity within students, the needs and requirements of our students. So there's constantly something to learn. There's constantly something that we can be doing better and improving. So I don't think that changes regardless of how much experience someone has. In fact, it shouldn't change. But I do think that for me, being such a newbie um, academic, but also new in my field, it feels like there's so much that I probably don't know and need to know. And so I like to make sure that I have that knowledge before I step into any classroom because I want to, one, be able to give the students, the experience of learning that they deserve to have. But also, I want to be able to do that for myself, for my own confidence, to feel that I know and I am aware of everything that I need to know on any given subject. So, yeah, that takes a lot longer than it probably takes some of my more experienced peers. Um, and that can result in a lot of extra reading and working and just planning and prepping and lecture notes and all of these different things that maybe other people don't necessarily have to do anymore. So I'm mindful of my own context when it comes to, my workload. But regardless, my workload is heavy. And I think that is quite typical within academia and across the board. I think everyone feels that way, regardless of experience and things of that nature. So, what I am now debating, I suppose, is there has been an announcement that there may be some new um, staff being hired in. Now, one, that's great for multiple reasons. One, I'm in my probationary period. And of course, we all know what's going on in higher education institutes in terms of finances and in things like that. But we are a growing course, and we've just added a new pre-reg MSc. So, our our course specifically, we're allied health profession that is growing. Um, So yeah, the fact that, new staff are being hired, that's positive. That's great, you know, in the context of everything I just spoke about. However, I have already put in a formal request to have my days compressed. So I do a zero point 0.8 contract, which is essentially 4 days, which feels like 10 days. If I'm completely honest with the amount of work, it doesn't feel like I'm working part time at all. You know, the workload is so heavy, um, and of course that ebbs and flows during different periods where you might be marking might be heavy. There might be lots of assessments happening, module leadership, all of those things. So it's gonna it changes during different peak times and periods. Um, but anyway, I've obviously requested that, and that's kind of been there's a bit of a weight and a hold on that because workload planning is happening at the moment. So understandably, that has been put on hold. But I have been waiting on bated breath to learn whether or not these hours will be accepted. And again, that goes back to me just wanting to have a bit more balance within my life. And I'm working evenings at this point pretty much all the time anyway. Early hours in the morning. When I say early hours, I mean I start at 9, but I might start working if I'm working from home, especially anywhere 6, 7, depends on if I'm awake or not. So yeah, I feel like this work is all consuming, and there's a lot of other dynamics that happen and that go on in politics and all of these things. And to be honest with you, whether that's again down to me and who I am as an individual and as a person, neurodivergence, trauma, whatever the case may be, being again a Black woman, seeing things differently to how many of my colleagues may see things. It is exhausting to, in no other words, it's exhausting. Sometimes, dare I say, even soul destroying. And it's so funny because I, outside looking in, it feels like, yeah, what do you mean? What do you mean you're not enjoying it? What do you mean that you feel this way? And again, it's not that I'm not enjoying the work, the role itself. It's just, I'm not enjoying how much of myself I'm losing to this role. I'm not enjoying how much of my time I'm losing to this role. I'm not enjoying the mom guilt and the shame that I feel for having to pour so much of my time and effort and energy into this role. And again, that's not just about the workload, that is about the emotional load that comes with it, with different things of being, um, a tokenized member of the team and being someone that many students feel comfortable to come to and express their upset, their disgruntledness, and just be emotionally vulnerable with. I think that you know comes with its own challenges in terms of my own management of that and maintaining boundaries and things like that. So that becomes, just a whole other job within the job. And I kind of think to myself, yes, whilst I am a therapist, I am obviously not a therapist within this role, but it's very hard for me not to take on um, other people's emotions and feel, I'm a person who does not like to see someone struggling. I don't like to see people in pain. I don't like to see people feeling, you know low about themselves, their lives. And when I say I don't like to see, it doesn't mean please hide it, I don't want to see it. No, I want to support that person, I want to encourage that person, I want to get them to where they need to be. um, but of course, within this role, that is not my role. And sometimes I think, well, would I just be better off going and working as a mental health therapist, or and then actually just doing that day in day out, rather than doing that whilst also trying to manage my academic workload, if that makes sense. But anyway, That's just something I'm navigating. And again, the racialized lens with that sometimes is quite difficult because it feels very personal and it feels something, that I'm very I feel strongly about, and I also understand deeply. So, um, you know, yeah, pain is shared. Let's just say that. But I think when it comes to this role, I'm in the position of I could either, while still being in my probation, as has been requested, express that I'm looking to either up or lower my work days, my work hours, based on the fact that new members of staff are going to be being hired in, but essentially we are being given, I guess, first dibs on, do we want to change our hours, because that will impact and reflect how the advert goes out and what hours they're offering, etc. And I saw that, and my first instinct was, wow, they're hiring someone for 2 days. 2 days. And I thought, can I do that? Would I do that? 2 days. Can I do that? Can I afford to do that? Um, and the answer is no, not right now. As I have so much upcoming that I have to consider. But again, this wouldn't happen until um, right before the new academic year. So there's time. And I thought, wow, that would allow me to focus on my children, really get into our home education. It could be the difference between sending my daughter to mainstream school versus home educating her. It could be the difference between so many things. But it just feels a little too early and too soon to be saying, yes, I want to work 2 days a week. However, this is just me overthinking, I think, again, because we've been asked. Everybody has been asked. And actually, yes, it makes sense to have that information before putting these jobs to advert, um, and just for planning purposes. So I know, you know, there's logic behind this question, but I also feel that does it therefore come across as if you're not happy in your job and you're not enjoying your job and all of these things? I sometimes feel that, there is a lack of understanding that I am a mother of very small children, and that, they take full priority in my life, over anything. And I think for most of my colleagues, when they had children my age, they were either not working or they were working very part time. Um, and yet somehow I just don't understand why they don't necessarily understand that that might be something that I want as well, but also has nothing to do with how much I enjoy my team or how much I enjoy the work, or but it's really just about realizing that actually, is this sustainable for me as a mother, and for my family. I don't want to look back in 10, 15 years time and feel that I've missed out so much on my children, or I've sent them into an environment that I have never felt comfortable to send them into. I was home educated myself, and although that was a very unique experience because of the context of my family upbringing, I have done so much research around home education and the values that I have, um, and the why that I would do it, and what it means to me. There are so many reasons. There are just so many reasons. And it's just something that I just deeply want. I deeply want to have my family all together, home educate our children, travel the world, work flexibly, work remotely, and just have that freedom. I think that's what we dream of, and it's what we want to work towards. So it's whilst I'm in a position where we're not able to do that, I thought, hmm, 2 days. Can I build something by that time that gives me enough reassurance to know that we're going to be good? We can afford to do this. Can I do that in enough time? Whilst I believe wholeheartedly that perhaps I could build something or go and work in clinical work, there's so many things that I want to do, but I believe it's possible, but it just doesn't feel possible whilst I am working currently, the amount of hours I'm working currently. It just doesn't feel as possible because, as I say, cognitively, I'm exhausted. Physically, I'm exhausted. And finding the time to work on these things is very difficult. Like, I've been lucky to be able to come and film today because somehow everybody's still sleeping, but I have to get up really early in order to be able to do this. So, um, yeah, that's just what's going on for me right now. And I'd love to know if this resonates with anybody and what they would do. What would you do? Would you risk your probation by expressing that you want to cut your hours down drastically? Would you wait until your probation's finished, even though, that opportunity may no longer be there? I feel like my team and the institution I'm in are quite open, hence the email being sent to us anyway. And I feel that I'm very much a person who's like, if it's meant to be, it is meant to be. And if it's not meant to be, well, it is what it is, right? So I am considering what I'm going to do, but I definitely need to sleep on it a little bit more and just really consider what we want. There is a part of me that thinks, you know what, send my daughter to mainstream school, at least for, the reception years and primary school years. But yeah, I know it's gonna be a challenge for all of us. It's gonna be a huge, huge adjustment. And it's not one I can say I'm looking forward to, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, I better go now. Thank you for tuning in and listening. Please like, comment, and subscribe if this resonates with you, or if you're interested in the things that I've been talking about, or interested to know more. But I would love to know your advice and what would you do? Would you just stick it out? Would you compress your hours, wait for that to hopefully come back? Or would you raise your hand up now and say, yeah, actually, I'd like to work less days? Um, and do you think that that would have an impact on passing probation in the long term? I'd love to know. I'd love to know. And again, are there any, sorry, I'm moving my mic. Is there anyone who has been in this position before, who has children, who is working in a job, any job, that you feel is kind of all consuming? And do you have any regrets? Are you happy? Have your children grown and you're now thinking, I wish I had been there and had that time with them and been more available mentally, emotionally, physically, etc.? Is there anyone who's had that experience, who's already out on the other side? How has that impacted you, and how has that impacted your children, and more importantly, your relationship with your kids? I would love to know. So please leave a comment and share if you feel comfortable to. I appreciate you watching this video, and I hope you'll come and watch some more so that we can just get through this life together and create some community, because I think that that is so, so important for us all, specifically as Black women. Anyway, I'm going to go now. Take care. Bye.